Hello everyone and welcome. So you want to try loom knitting. Well, that is great and you're going to love it. I just have a few tips and pointers to get you started. First of all, looms. What looms do you buy? You'll probably see a lot and you'll get overwhelmed and not know which ones to get. This I call the starter set. You'll usually find these four. This one you may or may not find. Sometimes it's called a flower loom, but you will usually find these four in a set. The gauge on these looms, and that's something you'll hear a lot about, is the distance between the middle of one peg to the middle of the next peg. That's the gauge. And the way you measure that, I have this little ruler here, and this is a 5/8 gauge loom. And that matters because it will tell you what kind of yarn you can use. Now the yarn that you use can be any kind of yarn really. It just depends on how much you use, depending on the gauge. So for this type of loom, this is a number 4 gauge. Number 4 gauge. I'm sorry, a 4 weight. This is a 4 weight yarn. For this type of loom, you would have to use 2 strands held together. This weight of yarn by itself would be too lightweight for this loom. Now this one is a number 6 bulky. This one, as you can see the difference between the two. This one you could use by itself, only 1 strand by itself with this gauge of a loom. Now what can you make? Well, with this set of looms, the possibilities are endless. You can make hats, scarves, slippers, booties, baby Afghans. You can make larger blankets if you want to do panels and sew them together. This is really a great starter set to get started with. I would recommend starting out making a hat and scarf set, maybe a couple of hat and scarf sets, just to get a feel for the loom and how it works, getting a feel for the stitches, learning the different stitches and how they work with the different yarns. I've seen in some of the loom groups that I'm in, new people will come in and they'll be so confused because they say, well, I want to knit a blanket, so I went out and bought this loom and I just don't get it. Well, a blanket is kind of a big project to start with. So that's why I recommend starting with hats and scarves. Other things that you'll need, of course, is a pair of scissors. This is something that comes with every loom set you buy. You're going to get a loom hook, which looks like this, and you may or may not get a yarn needle. Most of them do come with yarn needles, some of them don't. Something else that you're going to need is a stitch counter. Now this is a digital one. I like these. I have multiple because I'm usually working on more than one project at a time, so I have quite a few of these. There are manual stitch counters. You can use paper and pencil. There's the kind that you hang around your neck. I mean, there's all different kinds of stitch counters. Find one that you're comfortable with using. Now, stitch markers. you're going to find that sometimes you need to mark your pegs for certain stitches. Like on a brim of a hat, for example, you might be doing a knit to purl to. So you're going to want to mark your stitches so you know which ones are knits and which ones are purls. I would recommend going to Walmart or Hobby Lobby or Michael's or somewhere. These are the little colored rubber bands that came with the rubber band looms that were out a couple years ago, and you can still buy these rubber bands, and you get like 1,000 in a pack for a couple bucks. And these are awesome because you can color code your marks on your loom if you need to, and if they break, it's no big deal. If you need to, you can cut them off. If you say you've used your past where you don't need the stitch markers anymore, you can cut them off of the loom. It's no big loss. So these are awesome to start out with. I use these a lot. Something else you're going to need is some type of measuring tool. This is a good one. A ruler is another good option. And that is about all that you need to get started. I will be making some other videos talking more about the different kinds of looms that you can get. There's long looms and square looms and small gauge and big gauge and all different kinds of gauges, different stitches. I'll be doing some videos on the different cast-ons and cast-offs, bind-offs that you can do. So stay tuned for those. Those should be coming out in the next few weeks. If you have any questions, please feel free to message me or comment below, and I'll do my best to answer your questions. Otherwise, just jump in. YouTube is a wonderful resource. There are very many wonderful loom knitters out there with some wonderful patterns, easy to follow. Just jump in and start looming. And happy looming!